Welcome! This video will demonstrate my color wheel and color chart project, as well as some information regarding color theory. Here are my materials that I'm going to need for this project: oil paints, palette knife, a small flat paintbrush, a palette. I'm using disposable palette paper here, a rag, some solvent. Painter's tape is optional. Can be helpful, but you don't necessarily need it. I've got an 11 by 14 inch canvas panel here, a ruler or straight edge, and a pencil. I'm going to be using an HB pencil, but you can use anything similar to that. Here are the particular colors that you will need. We've got primary colors, white and black. Notice that I have a warm and cool version of each of my primary colors. I will list below down in the description the particular colors that you could choose, but there's different options of how to do this, but for my students I have them use a warm and cool version of each primary. Okay, so let's start with a wheel. I just grabbed something round to trace to get the wheel shape, which is a circle. And my color chart, you can see I used a ruler, and I will list down below in the description the dimensions for how I fit that onto my 11 by 14 inch canvas panel. I'm using my straight edge to cut the wheel in fourths. Okay, and now I'm doing some marks. I'm just eyeballing where I'm going to draw some lines to cut those fourths into 3 pieces. So you will end up with a total of 12 pie slices. So just make your best effort to have each pie slice generally the same size for a nice presentation. Use a straight edge for straight lines here. If you make a mistake, just erase. But you can see here I'm counting just to make sure I have 12. And now I'm going to mark where my primary colors are going to go. So I've set yellow, and then I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm writing down blue. And then I will count again 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I will place red. So as you can see, they have equal distance from each other on the color wheel. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut each primary color in half. So I'm only doing this on the primary color pie slices because I have a warm and cool version of each one, but all the other colors can stay as they are. And now I'm labeling where the warm and cool colors are going to go for my primaries. So you can copy mine exactly how I'm doing it. Cool colors lean towards the blue side of the color wheel. Warm colors lean towards the warm side, which is orange. Now I am labeling where my secondary colors are going to go, right in between each primary. So I've got yellow and blue make green, blue and red make violet or purple, red and yellow make orange. So now that I've got things labeled appropriately, I am ready to start filling in some color. Keep in mind as I show you this video, I have sped things up just to make this demo go a little bit faster, but when you do this, I would suggest taking your time and try to be careful about the craftsmanship. Try to get things looking nice with an even application of paint. You can utilize painter's tape if you want crisp edges and if you're struggling to paint within the lines, but I'm just doing it by hand and going slow. So I've grabbed some cool yellow to fill in there, and you'll notice that each time I switch to a different color, I clean my brush in the solvent, wipe my brush off on the rag, and then go to the next color, because you don't want to contaminate your colors as you go from one color to the next. So you always want to keep your brush really clean before you go to a new color. So I'm filling in the warm side of my primary with a warm yellow. You'll also notice as I move through this project that my can of solvent there, every time that I'm not using it, I place the cap back on, because solvent does evaporate in the air. And even though you should always paint in a well-ventilated area, I do also recommend just keeping the cap on so you're not breathing in all of that stuff. It's just a healthy habit to get into, to keep the cap on. So I'm filling in the cool side of the red primary color. And as you can see, I'm doing my best to get an even application. So usually what I do is I will wet my brush with solvent and then wipe it off on the rag so it's not soaking wet. You want your brush to be damp but not wet. And now I'm filling in the warm side of the red primary color. So the reason we're using warm and cool colors of each primary is because it's going to offer the widest range of value possibility, or not value, color possibilities. So this is a great way to learn color theory just by mixing color and learning how that works. And this is going to be a great reference for you as a student for as you're painting. You'll be able to reference back to this if you're trying to figure out how to mix a certain color. And if you're trying to remember, okay, do I need the warm or cool version of this color to mix the color that I want? So it's a really nice, handy tool. And the color wheels you get at the art store don't always have this feature of the warm and cool option. So, so we're making our own. As you can see, every time I need to mix a color, I'm using a palette knife. This is a really quick, easy way to mix your color. It's better than using the brush because you don't want to saturate your brush with a bunch of color before you even know if it's a color that you want to use or not. Also the brush will absorb all the color and the palette knife does not. So the palette knife really mixes the color really efficiently, quickly, and it's a really great tool to have. I'm mixing my secondary color, which is green, which is in between yellow and blue, and as you can see there, it's a typical green. I used the cool yellow mixed with the cool blue because as you can see on my color wheel, the green is in between the cool yellow and cool blue. So that's why I'm using those colors, because that's going to give me a very true, typical green. And I'm trying to get just, you know, your average green. It's not too yellow, not too blue. Because as you'll see next, after I clean my brush, I'm going to do the tertiary colors. So right now I'm mixing in between yellow and green. See, I've got that lighter green color. I'm going to test that on there, and you know, it didn't have quite enough yellow, so I added a little bit more yellow so that it's right in between that cool yellow and secondary green color. Now let's try this out. Okay, that looks much better. I really like that color quite a bit. So as you can see, the color wheel is kind of like a range of color possibilities, and there is no white, black, or gray mixed in at all. There's no neutrals mixed into the color wheel. It's just pure color. All right, so since I'm already working on the greens, I'm going to go ahead and darken that secondary green color with that same cool blue that I was working with, so that I can fill in that space that's in between the cool blue and the green color. So you can see how well that palette knife works there. Just adding a little bit more blue until I'm happy with the color. And as you can see, I clean off the palette knife as well. That's really important. So both the brush and the palette knife you need to clean each time you switch to a new color so that your color wheel colors will be crisp, clean, pure colors. So you can see that dark green looks pretty dark. It's because of that blue that's added in. It darkens it quite a bit. So there you can see how it looks with all of the colors filled in. Just do your best to apply the colors evenly and in that order. You can basically copy how I have it in that same order. Now we're moving on to the color chart. This is where we're going to try out the tints, tones, and shades. A tint is when you add white, a tone is when you add gray, and a shade is when you add black to a color. So as you saw on one end of the cross, I added some white. On the other end, I'm adding some black. Once I'm done with that, I will grab a color. I decided to go with warm yellow to add in the center. You can use any color from your choice of primary colors. Doesn't matter if it's cool or warm. Whatever color you want to try, put that in the center. That's going to be the main color that you're going to adjust with different options here. And you're going to learn how to control your oil paints really well with this project. So now I'm choosing another color to put on another end of my cross. I chose the cool blue because on my wheel I saw what it looked like to mix the cool yellow with the cool blue, but I didn't get to see warm yellow with the cool blue. So, but again, it's totally your choice which primary you want to put in the center and which primary you want to put at the end. So for example, if I wanted to put red in the center and yellow at the end, you know, I could do that. The idea is that we're just practicing getting a range between those two colors. Now you can see I'm mixing a mid-range value of gray by mixing white and black together. I'm using the Gray Matters disposable palettes, which is a mid-tone gray. So you can see the paint I mix is basically the same value of gray. But, you know, just make your best judgment for getting a middle range gray. Okay, so you can probably guess how this is going to go. So based on that center color, I'm going to see what happens when I add white, when I add gray, when I add black, or when I add another color. So you're going to be seeing, you know, me work on the palette here. And then, so I'm going to start out with yellow to gray. And you can see I made a mistake already. I was like, wait a minute, I put it in the wrong square. So what I did was I added a tiny bit of gray to yellow. So I'm going to have this gradient. I'm going to end up with this gradient from yellow to gray. So now I added a little bit more gray to my mixture. So you can see I'm already getting a range. Now I'm adding a little bit more gray. So you can see how each time I add more gray to the yellow, it dulls the yellow down. Sometimes if you add a little of the color and if it doesn't change the color that much, you can add a little bit more, but just start out with little bits that you add. You can change the color really slowly just to see how to control the paint. Because some colors will work with just a little bit. You know, for example, like a phthalo blue color has a strong tinting strength, which means that a little bit goes a long way. So you would want to add like a teeny tiny little dot just to change the color. But other colors are weak where you have to add more of the color to change your color mixture. But you can see here, each time I'm adding gray to the yellow, we get a duller version of that yellow. So I'm almost done there with that range from yellow to gray. Just got one more box to fill in, that box where I initially made a mistake. And I realized I needed to add more gray, so I'm doing that on my palette. We'll try that color on top, and that's looking better. So as you can see, we are toning the yellow because when you add gray to something, that's called toning the color. There you can see a close-up, my range from yellow to gray, and there is an example of what the whole thing finished looks like, because one scale goes white, one goes towards black, and one goes towards another color. And here's another example. For example, if I had used red instead of blue, that, then you get that range from yellow to red. So it's up to you which color you want to put at the end there and which color you put in the center. But there's the finished, completed project. Thank you for watching this video. I hope this project provided some good basic color theory information concerning warm and cool colors, color mixing, tints, tones, and shades, and gives you an opportunity to practice handling your oil paints. Comment below if you have any color theory questions, because I am happy to help. Thank you so much.